Welcome to JCN Profiles, in-depth interviews with visionary leaders of the information age.
Hi, I'm Marc Doyle. We're in Fremont, California, just south of San Francisco, to profile Douglas Engelbart. Now, Douglas Engelbart is a legendary figure in high technology circles. 30 years ago, he was one of the genuine creators of the computer age. This is one frame from a film that documents one of the historic moments in computer science. It shows a mouse being used for the first time. Douglas Engelbart invented the mouse and many other elements of modern computing that we all take for granted today. On this day, back in December of 1968, he demonstrated the mouse, the computer workstation, hyperlinking, and live video conferencing. Throughout this episode of JCN Profiles, we'll show you more highlight clips from this incredible film about a man who had a vision of today 40 years ago.
It just dawned on me that the complexity of our problems was growing, exponentially, so to speak, and that our ability to cope them hasn't. And not only are they getting more complicated, they're getting more urgent, that you have less and less time because of that. So in the ensuing years, watching as the globalization of our societies and economy grows, you realize that that's really the case. And so I thought, well, is there something one can do to improve our collective capability to deal with complexity and urgency? And I said, oh, maybe so. And so I was an electrical engineer, and I'd read books on computers. I'd never seen one. But I realized, gee, you really potentially could do that. And I had radar training as a Navy technician in World War II, and so easily knew that if a computer could punch cards or print out on a printer, it could do anything you want to correspondingly on a cathode ray tube. And that it could also sense any of your actions and keyboard things easily. That's no engineering problem. So I thought, well, you could sit there and interact with a computer, and it could throw symbols on the screen that could start to generate a whole new language, a symbology that you can employ because of the speed and flexibility. And then other colleagues could be with that consoles tied to the same complex, and you could be collaborating more closely. Wow. That was born my crusade. So all that took place in about an hour and a half one Saturday morning, and I was hooked. Many years ago, when I began to really try to do something serious about my dream about computers really making a difference in how people can do their knowledge work and their thinking, I started thinking about, well, what other things affect how effective you are? And I ended up making a list. What are all the things that I need that I have learned how to use that make me effective? And you could put down computers, but pretty soon you get a long list of different sort of artifacts or tools or things like that. And then you have to start realizing, oh, I've been trained. I've got a lot of knowledge and skills. I've got a language. My gosh, I've got methods. I've got customs. They're procedures, organizations. I got roles. I work in organizations. And later I learned about, I've got my own framework about the world that goes in there like that. So that all of these things play a very important part in how effectively I utilize whatever's here in order to go about and doing any effective work, of knowledge work or whatever. So the digital technology, even 35 years ago or so, to me it was obvious by the time I'd studied it for 10 years then that the scale of change in the speed and the flexibility and the comprehensibility and the resolution and the detail, etc., and the storage capacity, all those things were just going to increase by huge factors in the coming decades. It became apparent to me then that this human system side was in for massive changes, and it's since then I've come to realize that that's something the world just doesn't appreciate. We're used to that human side as it is. We grow up in it, and we don't think of these things as candidates for serious change. So thus, when the tools, computers starting over here, they're thought of automating what we do over here. We'll do the same things, we'll just automate them. Instead of that you try to change. No, look, that's going to change. Well, I got thrown out of the research world 20 years ago because I was saying such strange things like that. But now it's apparent that that's what's going to happen. But Are we ready for viewing the scale of change on this side that it will take in order to really, really harness what's over here? And that's where the big difference is there, is getting people to perceive that this is really a very rich place to look for candidate change, and that's the only way we're really going to learn how to harness all this. And we better start learning and being explicit about this change in the human system rather than just letting the product people throw new stuff at us here, and that we gradually and always retroactively are starting to adapt to it here. That we better become proactive in planning concurrently the way these future things are changing together. The Bootstrap Institute is working now with a very matured perception of the potential and the gains for the goals I started out in 1951, with lots of experience and with changing organizations and a lot of experience in developing a system which by today's standards is still a very advanced hypermedia collaborative support environment. And the thing that I learned predominantly through those years was that the degree of change within organizations, if they're going to achieve, really harness the benefits effectively of the technology, was enough so that the very approach they take in this change process or the improvement process has to be looked at, and the fact that the very kinds of capabilities that we talk about changing or boosting, which we've given a shorthand name for now, calling the collective IQ of organizations, that this can actually, if you learn how to improve it in stages, can be introduced to improve your improvement process. And that without that, it's a complicated sort of process, so that improving the improvement process by the very means that you're targeting for improving the end capabilities of your organization just is a strategic thing that shouldn't go unapplied. So that's what we've been doing, is trying to get that idea out there and get it in place.
Doug Engelbart's original vision of knowledge workers using the power of computers to solve problems together was the foundation of an idea which he eventually called collective IQ. It's the notion that digitally connected workers with access to all the knowledge in an organization are one of the key elements in successfully speeding up the rate of organizational change.
Our cities and towns collectively build streets and parks, and we build schools, and collectively we organize the way we do our business, and collectively a given company will somehow produce products and manufacture and distribute them, or services, and collectively our states and our nations somehow make decisions about how to deploy the resources and what's important to do, and then collectively they marshal the resources to do it, and some are more efficient than others, some are, but if you looked at that collective kind of action, engaged it as though it were a human, doing that kind of thing, of integrating the knowledge about what's happening in the world around it, looking at the options it has for operations, setting goals that are sensible and smart, that are reachable, applying its resources, coordinating its pursuit of it. All those are things we kind of can attribute to how smart and with it someone is. So if you look at the way collectively we do that, there are some collective things we do that are really quite marvelous, and there are others that are laughable in the kind of low IQ level you'd have to say they exist. The potential with the digital technology, it's almost as if these organisms, these social organisms we're talking about, were suddenly evolution brought them a new nervous system that was much more efficient and effective and fast and comprehensive, etc., from any nervous system they'd had before. So can't those organisms then start evolving in order to take advantage of that new kind of nervous system to become a much higher level of intelligent, perceptive, oriented human? And since the survival of mankind on this single planet is going to be very much affected by its collective IQ, you realize that it'd be very important, if the option is there to improve it, to get about doing it as a very high priority pursuit. And so that's the kind of thing that drives me, saying, boy, every year sooner that we get at it could make a huge difference.
Doug Engelbart has always been ahead of his time. One of his principal messages today is the notion that as technology evolves, so must human activities. And while there is a fair amount of high-tech experimental work being done, the evolution of human activities is lagging behind and slowing down the growth of the information age.
What we really need is very explicit research in this end, which means combinations of getting combinations of far-out technologies that aren't really available in the market yet, and to fit new combinations of the way people will work, so that they're really the sense of outposts out there. So we make a little symbology. It says, oh, if somebody says some of the not-so-dramatic new tools, if I really explored new ways I could work, I'd have an outpost up here. And I don't want to move my whole company out there at all, or my whole country, so I'll get some volunteers and they'll reshape the way they work and they'll live out there. So he says, well, all right, where would you like to go? Would you like maybe a frontier here that's higher dramatic technologies but not so much change in the human system side? Or would you say, well, or let's get farther out into the frontier out here, or let's just be really dramatic and get something way out here. So in some way, we need to explore that, because big organizations will find it extremely expensive to move into this area like that. As you move vertically especially, you're educating a lot of people change, you're changing your procedures, you're changing roles, jobs, skills, knowledge, decision processes, and all of that. Those are very expensive to get everybody lined up with one, even if you knew exactly how you would do it. Every organization's end result, if it's going to survive, is going to have to migrate in that direction, and the time it takes to migrate out to here, the frontier by then is going to be up here. So we have to be a lot more efficient about the way we can explore and migrate into there if we really want to learn how to harness it.
What opportunity does the government and the Congress have to influence the evolution of the information age?
There is an important role, I think, for the government to play in the kind of exploration that would be called for in order to understand what this new digital frontier can mean to our society. And some of the things it can mean can be slightly fearful, and many of them, though, can have a great deal of appeal in the business sense, and entertainment, and education, and health, and many of the others. And underlying all of that, there's more potential there than is coherently being faced. So a government role for helping make a sensible strategic exploration of this new frontier by actually supporting outposts out in there of organizational units that have meaningful roles and can be recruited and equipped in advanced ways to explore the way that they could really work together effectively to do significantly more sort of intelligent collective activity together. That somehow it's hard to convey the potential there without actually exploring it. And that in order for people who in someday have to take their organizations, move them out in that frontier into the new ways of living, they don't have any examples out there ahead towards moving it. So the most well-meaning CEO of any progressive corporation may want to move out there and have resources and the courage to do it, but they don't have any examples. So it's very much the kind of a thing that's suitable for a government to do, is to do it. That they set up space stations, that someday there could be commercial operations, but who's going to do it now, because there's so much to learn about it. So anyway, this is one sort of thing. it isn't the kind of thing that you can just grab some, something that's politically saleable to the public in its terms today and charge off after that. That isn't going to be the way that the countries that come out ahead in what you could call the most highest rated collective IQ of any country in the world would be country X. So you can imagine there should be a real race to be the smartest one to strategically go after being the smartest country in all of these elements. It's business, it's education, it's healthcare, and it's legislation, it's executive work, and it's judicial work. And we're not going to get there by just watching the marketplace work the way it does. The marketplace, there isn't a driving function to produce the most effective corporation. That the driving force is to produce and gain market sale. And there's a lot of lost opportunity that's going to be very expensive in following decades if we don't go after it soon. This one is trying to show in one sort of picture the essence of the strategies that we've been talking about. And in this strategy we look at a given organization, one or two or n, there's these different organizations that are trying to improve themselves. So we talk about their A activities with a human and tool system supporting them here, just as down here there's a human and tool system supporting this activity. So we're trying to say we want to make that organization's primary activities more effective. So in order for that, you have to have some activity there that's recognized and supported. This whole purpose is to improve the augmentation system, to make tools and human system changes that make the A activities more effective. And in a world that's changing rapidly, in which you want this B thing that improves the A capability, you want that to be more and more effective, you have to have something that improves its capability. So we talk about a C capability. In this case, these organizations have gone together to pool the C-level stuff so that collectively you're producing results here that can come up and improve the B capability of each organization so it's better able to make its organization more effective. So what are the practical things? Well, B's all start reporting down into this activity, and you talk about this collective community as a distributed, networked environment. You talk about a networked improvement community here that is a very practical thing to get going today. That the kinds of knowledge support and integration that you can provide in this environment here, and this can be a place in which you use the most advanced sort of outpost techniques to take and integrate the knowledge and produce better things and produce electronic handbooks essentially that guide the bees and how they do their work, with bees constantly involved in shaping and producing that new knowledge, etc. So there's a great deal to examine in here about the dynamics, but to us it's a kind of improvement infrastructure.
It must have really been a revelation to have been in the audience in San Francisco in 1968 when Doug Engelbart and his colleagues at the Stanford Research Institute demonstrated their vision of how computers would change the way people live and work. In retrospect, it was surely one of the great moments in the history of computer science.
I've given you an overall picture about the program, and that's out of the way, and I can just move my marker down and say, let's save that version. So this tool, in pursuing those goals, one of our principal tools is this computer-aided system. Let's talk about it as a system. There's a link sequence to jump in there too. Where we talk about NLS, meaning online system, a very general term. It's going to be NLS for many, many years, an online system that will evolve. Right now we consider it to be primarily an instrument and a vehicle for helping humans to operate within the domain of complex information structures.
The probability of libraries still existing as they are today will drop. Why will you go try to find some bulky sort of form of it when through your screen, bingo, you can pop to any piece of knowledge in the world and it'd be right there available to you. So, you know, that's a hard thing the librarians and scholars just shudder when they hear that, and they look at you and say, you don't understand, there's something about a book. And I says, I know there's something about a book, you know, but there's something about the knowledge that's within it that is trapped in a book in a very unfortunate mode that's so much more flexibly arrived at, studied, worked with, shared in this electronic means. So there was something about a stone tablet, too. See? So I'm sorry to see the feeling about books having to go away, because I loved them, too. But the shift. But anyway, that's the window into the knowledge world, the window into shopping, the window into communications with your friends, etc. So the telephone as a sole thing is sort of going to disappear and be integrated right into that. And, you know, so these things are just inevitable. They're not some wild dream. And the technology inevitably is going to get so cheap and so fast, etc., that what you can hold in your hand, this is inevitable. What you can hold in your hand will have more storage capacity than all that exists digitally in the world today.
Doug Engelbart is now 70 years old, and even though he is credited with being one of the most influential creators of the information age, he thinks his best work may be yet to come.
I think about that sometimes, and you know, especially if people ask me, well, hey, look, people are using your mouse, people are doing this and that, aren't you satisfied? You know, what would it be to satisfy? Well, it's if the pursuit of what we're talking about becomes an explicit target in society, and it's funded and pursued, and there are lots of people going at it, and if the strategy, if we can get this bootstrapping strategy sold, that would make so much difference in how effective we could with society. If those just got started enough so that it was like a fire, it's going to now go, then I could relax a lot somehow. But so that's a big part. And then I want to be part of it. I got all these ideas, all the technology we've built in the past and stuff like that, that, hey, I'd like to offer it and get involved, participate. So I've been treading water, essentially, for, 20 years, almost, in that sense. And I really want to swim with it for a while.
This device over here is unique to us, and we always have to justify and explain it. We'll do it in reverse order. We'll explain it first.